All right, guys, we're moving on from exploration and we're going to start talking about American colonization today. So today I'm just going to talk to you about two separate colonies, one which you kind of know a pretty good amount about, and we did an assignment on, and one, Jamestown, which is the first permanent colony that is actually established in the New World. So let's just jump into both of those real quick. So what is the first British colony? We've talked about it already, and you've probably heard about it at this point. You may have even visited it. The first colony that is established by England, specifically in the New World, is the Roanoke Colony, which is established in the Outer Banks of North Carolina over here. It's sponsored by Sir Walter Raleigh, which is why the capital of North Carolina is called Raleigh. It's named after him. And of course, so between the years of 1587 to 1589, when John White, who was the leader of the Roanoke Colony, ends up leaving to go and get some more supplies off in Great Britain, something happens during that time period. We did that assignment in class. Either they were attacked by the Spanish, they left to go live with the Croatoan people, they were attacked by the Croatoan people. It's kind of up in the air as to what it is actually happened to these people. But during that time period, those 2 years while John White is gone, something happened to these folks and they ended up disappearing without any sort of a trace. And so because of that, this first colony of Roanoke is just completely unsuccessful, and it becomes known as the Lost Colony. So this is the first colony, but it's not the first permanent colony since it does not last, it is unsuccessful. The first permanent colony that is established is Jamestown. So Roanoke is down here in North Carolina, and Jamestown is a little bit further north in the colony of what will eventually become Virginia. So what was Jamestown? Why is it established? Jamestown is the second attempt by Great Britain to colonize in the New World. So whereas Roanoke is funded by Sir Walter Raleigh, just this one man who, if he makes money, then he makes all of that money by himself. But if he loses money, he loses all of that money. So what happens with Jamestown is it is actually established by a company, several people that have come together in order to invest. So if they make money, they all make money. And if they lose money, they only end up losing a little bit. So you're not going to have really individuals investing as much of their income as what happened with Sir Walter Raleigh, at least initially. And so the Virginia Company is founded, and this colony of Jamestown is created with really the intention of trying to find precious metals in the New World. Things like gold, silver, copper. Britain sees all of the money that is being made by Spain specifically discovering gold down in Central and South America, and so they want a piece of that pie. And they have this idea that the New World is just chock full of all of these precious metals. But in Virginia specifically, that's just not the case. When they get there, they only bring things like chemical tests for discovering gold and testing for where gold and other precious metals are. They bring pickaxes and shovels. They don't really bring anything with them to actually help establish a permanent colony. And on top of that, not only do they bring anything to really help them establish this colony, but the types of people that go are folks that are really, really wealthy, that aren't really used to hard labor. They're kind of like really prissy boys at the end of the day. And so because these precious metals aren't discovered and because the folks that go are kind of ill-suited to the labor, Jamestown is just going to go downhill almost immediately. Jamestown's going to be attacked by Native Americans. They establish the colony really close to a Native American tribe, and relations with them start off really, really bad. They end up settling in a swamp, so there's malaria everywhere because of all the mosquitoes. They get there too late to plant, and the land isn't very fertile, so they're not able to plant very much, if anything. So they're going to have malaria and starvation, and it's going to enter this time called the starving time, where literally people are starving to death because they don't have any way of providing for themselves. You have instances of cannibalism, where people are eating each other. One man is recorded as having killed his wife and was found eating her brain out of her head, and he was burned to death. But the starving time is really this rough time for Jamestown, where it's looking like that colony is probably going to fail too. So what ends up happening is this guy John Smith is kind of sent to save the day and kind of turn around Jamestown and make it this profitable venture. He's sent by the Virginia Company with the intention of, okay, John Smith, you need to go out there and you need to make us some money. This is a picture of John Smith right here. He's not the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, strapping young man that you see in Pocahontas. He's actually kind of like a rough and tough older guy. And he's not this like romantic hero. He's there to establish martial law in the colony, making sure that people are punished if they don't work, that they starve to death if they don't work, to make sure that if they do work, they're rewarded, but if they don't, that they reap no sort of benefits. If you don't contribute to the cause, if you don't contribute to the success of the colony, then according to John Smith and the way that he was thinking, you can just die because you are completely and entirely useless. John Smith also is going to interact with those local Native Americans. They're called the Powhatan tribe. So he's going to work to kind of improve that relationship between the Jamestown settlers and the Powhatan people. And he actually negotiates a trade partnership, saying, hey, Powhatan people, we'll give you these goods that we have extra of, this, that, and the other, weapons, armor, whatever that we have, if you guys will just give us food. Because the Powhatan have plenty and plenty of food and are really, really successful living in the New World, and they're a really powerful tribe. And so what ends up happening is the Powhatan and John Smith and the Jamestown settlers start to trade with each other for a mutually beneficial amount of time. The Powhatan give John Smith and the Jamestown settlers food, and the Powhatan receive things that they wouldn't typically have access to. So Jamestown turns around for a little bit. It's no longer in that starving time. It's a little bit more successful. But it's not really making very much money. Once again, because they're not finding the precious metals that they were supposed to find when they got to Jamestown. Until this one guy, another John, a different John, his name is John Rolfe. He actually discovers a particular strain of tobacco and starts to grow it himself in the New World. And then starts to sell it. And so what ends up happening is he starts to turn a profit, and other people within the Jamestown colony start to see like, hey, John Rolfe's really making a good amount of money, so I think I might start selling tobacco as well. So John Rolfe starts to turn this profit. Other Jamestown settlers start to plant tobacco as well. And so after a while, that's what Jamestown becomes known for. It becomes known not as a mining colony like they initially founded it to be, but it becomes known as this colony where the cash crop, and that's any sort of crop that is not essential to survival, but it's grown for the purpose of it makes a lot of money. Jamestown becomes known as this colony where this cash crop of tobacco is grown, and it turns Jamestown completely around, and it turns it into this really, really profitable colony. Last thing with Jamestown that I'll discuss in this video is the development of this thing called the Virginia House of Burgesses. And so when you see that, don't think of it as like an actual house. What it is it's a form of government. House of Burgesses literally means like government of super, super rich people. That's what a Burgess is. It's just a wealthy landowning individual. So what is the function of it? Jamestown is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Once they start to grow tobacco, more people start to move into that area, and Jamestown is growing and expanding and becoming much, much larger. And eventually it develops from just the little colony of Jamestown into the much, much bigger colony of Virginia. And so what ends up happening is Virginia gets to this point to where it starts having to make really big, really important decisions very quickly. But the issue is that most of the time the king makes these decisions or parliament makes these decisions. But it's way back, in the 1600s, so if you have to ask a question and make this big decision and you need the king's input, it's going to take months and months for you to get any sort of response. Like if you have to act quickly, if there's something that's very dire at hand that needs a decision, then you're going to want to make that decision as fast as possible, and sometimes you're not going to have the time to wait to get a response from the king or to get a response from Parliament. And so it gets to a point where the Virginia colony decides, well, let's do this. Instead of just asking the king all the time and having to wait, why not create this system where we can make our own decisions based upon how the people within our colony feel. And so that's how the Virginia House of Burgesses kind of comes to be created. So it's a Republican form of government, meaning that the people within Virginia select individuals who will then represent them in government. So they pick from the wealthiest people in the colony that own the most amount of land because they're the most successful typically, they're going to be the most well educated, and they're going to be the ones that are going to serve in government. And each one of these burgesses, these wealthy individuals that have been selected, are going to represent a small portion of the colony. So they're going to vote on behalf of their portion of the colony. Think of it as being very similar to how we have representatives today that represent different states in the United States. It's very similar to that. So you have burgesses that represent small portions of the Virginia colony, and so they help to make decisions based upon what the people that elected them into office would want them to do. So it's a Republican or a representative form of government that's run by these wealthy landowning colonists. It's not a direct democracy where everyone in the colony votes. It's instead a representative Republican form of government where you have a few people that make decisions based upon what those who elected them would want. So that's Jamestown and the Virginia colony really, really quickly explained for you guys. So there you go.